no one you'd like to meet. When I lived there with my husband, we were fine. Fine people. Viramori, everyone would say, your house is as grand as Boyle Manor, better even. Your dinners are lavish and your parties are the best. When that young Sokolov came to paint my portrait, I was nearly still in my prime. Radiant, he said, and he was just barely a man, so young, painting all the best people across the land. Everyone wanted a portrait by his hand, all my friends. I was the only one, dearie, wet with his paint glistening on the canvas for a pretty coin. But it wasn't all parties and paintings. My husband and I weren't always at home. No, we traveled together, he and I, to the far ends of the Isles, beyond even, all the way to the red cliffs of Pandysia, to dig in the rock and crawl through the caves, holding up candles and squinting at the walls. Many precious things we came upon, but none so precious as the boy with the black eyes, dearie. All those marks and bones, carved so deep and polished so bright. Oh, the outsider. I brought the old bones home, hid them from my dear husband. Then I learned to boil them and carve them myself. They made such good presents, dearie. The little mute boy took them home. He loved them so. All the time he came back with new bones for me, holding them up so I could see it in his eyes. Even though his tongue was still, Granny, his eyes would say to me, carve these bones for me. Make me another present. And he went so far, all the way to Dunwall Tower, the royal headsman himself now, my little mute boy and his shiny sword. Is that me? Is that Corvo? Better bones were what I needed, you see. Better bones to carve and polish, scrape and gleam. My dear old husband was always tired. I made him soup, and then he was sick. Better bones was all. For my little mute boy, carved in the name of the one with black eyes, and after my husband was gone, given away his birthday gifts. I didn't want to live there anymore. So now I'm old, and I don't have many to give my presents to. It's shifting through the garbage for granny rags and feeding the little birdies that gather at my feet. No one wants to have tea, dearie. Especially those rude louts on Bottle Street, Slackjaw and his boys, always meddling with an old woman just trying to make her way. In the end, we'll be together with him, you and me in the dreary night, with stars above and below, and always the one with black eyes, dearie. Oh. Wait, I need the... Where's the...
Somewhere in the basements below, hound kills hound, and money changes hands.
No, that's me! That's terrible! Why? Ah, it's freaking out! Alright, let's look at these things. Early life and criminal record, Slackjaw. Excerpt from a series of letters sent by a member of the Bottle Street gang. You want the chin wig on Slackjaw? What was he like when he was young before he got his name? Oh, he's got a cool head now. But it weren't always like that in days before he was boss of this Bottle Street gang. Time was. Young Slackjaw wasn't such a reasonable man. Like most of us, he grew up on the streets, running with a pack of ragamuffins and avoiding the law, pinching whatever he needed. Dark-haired and dark-eyed, smoking a pipe by the age of 10. For them born into the brothels or coming from the orphanages, it was either the gangs or working with the mudlarks, and no one wants that. Some got pressed into the Navy or put down in the mines run by Pendleton and Boyle families. As hard as it was on the streets, as hungry as we all got, at least we was free. By the time we weren't little uns anymore, the Slackjaw was one to watch, usually calling the shots. When we took down a farmer's cart or sidewalk street vendor, he'd come up with a plan, give everyone some part to play, and decide on the split. Most of us just went along because we learned fast that we made out better like that. More food, more coin. Plus, none of us wanted to deal with Slackjaw when he was in a rage. He worked on a couple of jobs with Black Sally across town, and that was enough to get the attention of the other bosses. He wasn't just a street kid anymore. Now he was an up-and-comer, which meant trouble. Another guy who fancied himself as such was Mike the Fish, who was working his way up running the protection racket among the factory women. One fine evening, we were all taken in body show in the theater house. Mike the Fish and his lot were there in the cheap seats too. It was down the aisle from us. Mike gets a wild idea. He wasn't big on planning, and throws a heavy surrounding spittoon at Slackjaw, hits him square in the face and breaks his jaw. We look to see if there's going to be a blood brawl. Slackjaw points to the door and we all leave, with Mike laughing at our backs. Waking up the next day without telling us why, Slackjaw motions for us all to follow. He still can't say a word, so we just come along. We stop at the docks and Slackjaw actually pays coin for it, a heavy chain covered in hooks. It's for fishing in the deep, something you'd attach to a line off the side of a ship. It's about 4 feet, made of thick links, and there are shark hooks coming off at different angles. Slackjaw's got this thing wrapped around his left arm, dangling at his side. Not sure how he knew where Mike the Fish was staying, but when we reach his girl's house, Slackjaw throws a bottle through the window just like that. It's almost noon. There's a bunch of screaming inside. Mike pokes his head out, looking wide-eyed and baffled. When we see Slackjaw on the street, a look comes over his face that still gives me the willies. Pure murder. Mike comes out the side door, bellowing like a blood ox, holding the cleaver, heading straight for Slackjaw. When they come together in the street, Slackjaw spins the shark hooks deep into Mike's arm and shoulder. He screams, but Slackjaw holds on to the chain. He's standing there with his jaw broken, clenched tight, with the chain wrapped around his left arm. Hook sunk into Mike the Fish, just knifing him as fast as he can. Mike couldn't fight very well, hooked like that and using his left hand, but he was a big guy and took a lot of the stabbing before he went to his knees. Everyone was cheering at first, but then it all went quiet. It just kept going, and finally, it was just like Mike the Fish blubbering, crying like a baby, and the sounds of Slackjaw's knife. When it was over, and here's the brilliant part, Slackjaw took out a note and stuck it to Mike's face with a nail. It just said, "If you want a job, come to Bottle Street." Slackjaw didn't talk right for a couple of months, but word spread fast. By the end of the year, once we had a sizable gang going, he sent out letters to the other bosses telling them that he was running a brand new crew over on Bottle Street. Most of them laughed or beat up the guys who delivered the letters. Green-eyed Triss even came back missing a thumb. But apparently, Slackjaw was expecting that kind of reaction from and had a backup plan. A week later, 4 of the bosses were dead. It seemed like a series of unfortunate events. But everyone knew better. One shot dead by the watch while standing in the middle of a meat market, another slipping and falling into the water out cold. One of the older bosses found in the bed with his belly opened wide and a Tyrian pear stuffed into his mouth. Still not sure what that meant. And Sheila Barnesworth was found blubbering in a cauldron or bubbling in a cauldron of hot wax. Slackjaw sent out another set of flyers, offers to the underbosses telling them they'd be treated fair as peers. He even sent Green-eyed Triss with one of his letters. All of the underbosses accepted. After spilling the guts of his main competition, Slackjaw went in for stabilizing his business, real neat-like, calling on favors, smoothing things over, giving everyone a little bit of coin or drink as a bonus, showing that he could be like his boss. So everything got quiet, which always makes the boys of the City Watch nervous, of course. Word went out among the Royal Spy Master snitches, the responsible citizens group they call themselves, telling everyone working in the shop or sweeping off the front steps of their homes to keep watchful eyes for Slackjaw and his men, trying to suss out what they were up to and what had just happened. But Slackjaw ain't stupid. He greased a few palms along the shopkeepers and watched too, telling them that he was in town to stay and that things would be properly run from now on, without so much blood. He was finally a real boss, ready to settle into the business of moving whiskey, running the hound fights, and offering up the ladies and gentlemen of the night, if you take my meaning. Then the plague came. At first, it seemed like a good thing. A few people got sick, and everyone wanted to buy those potions from Sokolov or Piero. Health elixir, or spiritual remedy they call them. Slackjaw told me he saw an opportunity. We already had an old whiskey factory with a still, where we could water the stuff down and sell it discounted. Doing the same with the Sokolov's elixir was a smart plan. Pretty soon everybody in the slums was sick and business was good. But after a while there were so many people down with the plague that everyone got scared. Everybody started acting real nasty and everything fell apart. People can't work. They don't have the coin for elixir, watered down or pure. When the Empress died, it seemed like Dunwall would slide into the void. Spy Master Burroughs took over and the Watch started using all that new Sokolov tech. Watchtowers, tall boys, and them arc pylons. They put up a wall of light across the Clavering Boulevard and cracked down hard. But Slackjaw surprised us again. Instead of leaving town on a boat bound for Morlaix or one of the other isles, we stayed and kept it all together. We get as much luxury to fight off the plague as the city watch and their taxes and rations, and that's kept us alive. So far. Crowley, Bottle Street Gang. Interesting. Interesting. What? I don't really know what these are for yet. Anyway. Let's see. More money. Excerpt from Personal Memoirs of Hiriam Burroughs, dated several years earlier. This is the 4th day, month of high cold. Progress continues on the suppression of gang activity in the distillery district, but more slowly than I expected. The ruffians operating there have been cunning, I'll grant them that, but it's only a matter of time. I see there's leaders flogged in public and sent beneath a royal executioner's blade. If I had my way, that mute bastard would be working night and day, removing the heads that needed removing. Okay, so Granny was talking about Sokolov, who made the health elixir, and also works for these guys. Yeah. Internally, the Empress does not seem pleased with my investigations. It seems that it is beyond her thinking, against her very nature as a trusting person, to believe that traitors move among us. But I know they do. They must. No, Jessamine would rather spend her time with her royal protector. At least he's likely to stop any immediate threat to her safety. But a strong arm is not what's needed against those who would undermine us. How will Corvo stop a poisoned wine glass or an explosive delivered by a courier? It will not. There are many threats around us, threats requiring meticulous efforts to police. The young Lady Emily is undisciplined, I'm afraid. Here within Dunwell Tower she receives instructions from the finest tutors known in the Isles, yet her mother spoils her and she spends most of her time lost in imagination, wasting her time drawing or asking Corvo to teach her how to fight with wooden sticks. The girl might rule the Empire someday. Every moment spent at play is a moment wasted. Actually, play is very important in education because it teaches people to think, so that's incorrect. Even animals play, so, you know. Shoring up security for the main gate leading into Dunwell Tower has been another pet project of late. To think that back in his day Emperor Caldwin left it open to the public during the day, allowing anyone to come and go as they pleased. If it were up to me, I'd seal off access to the streets entirely, but the Empress won't hear of it. The water lock is much easier to protect, and if it were the only way to the tower, traffic in and out would be greatly reduced. Someday the wrong person is going to slip in and will suffer for it. Mark my words, no amount of security is excessive when it comes to protecting the heads of state. The Empress also disapproves of my plans for the Sokolov devices. Sokolov himself has no interest in security, of course, but he's vain and therefore keen to see his inventions deployed in any fashion. This wall of light he's been tinkering with has promise. In any case, at least I was able to convince the Empress to upgrade the pistols carried by the officers of the watch. Why do I worry so when no one else seems to care? If I ever fall asleep, will it all sink into the ocean? Will the rough things clamber over the walls and fill themselves on our flesh? This is what I see in the same dream several times each month. If only I had more to say in things, more authority, I could protect us all. Perhaps I have been working too hard. Dinner and evening and conversation with a certain lady of refinement might be in order. Perhaps somewhere in the estate district. Alrighty then.